Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. The name of the podcast today is You Don't Want to Be Blockbuster. For so many years, I was obsessed with the fact that Blockbuster went out of business. I remember going there so often on a Friday night or a Saturday night and renting a movie. And as the market started to change, it was really clear, I thought, that everything was moving online. And they waited a very long time. And I know they did at one point try to invest in more online streaming and then pulled it back. But eventually, they went out of business. So in my mind, I've always equated Blockbuster with this idea of standing still when the world is changing. And I bring this up because a couple of weeks into the pandemic, a lot of my clients had to start making changes. I had to start making changes. And I remember one client called me up and we were trying to think of new ideas so she could stay in business during this time of quarantine and social distancing. And her response to me was, "This is not what we do." And in that moment, I thought of Blockbuster. I bet that's what they were thinking. Well, we have this brick and mortar business and this is what we do. But the economy changed and people's interests changed. And Blockbuster just didn't change when there were all the signs there that they needed to be in a different business. And I actually spoke to my client about Blockbuster and changing and showing up and pivoting and how we have to just accept the uncertainty. And if we could accept it and we're not struggling with the idea that things are changing, we're going to be more centered within ourselves to know when it's time to make a different decision, when it's time to make a change in your business, when it's time to pivot. And what's also interesting, if you're not walking around with this idea of this is how we do things, you're also going to have more patience because you're not going to be scared of the change. And when we're not scared of the change, we're not desperate for the answer. Some of us have no answers right now because our industries are closed. Our businesses are closed. Where we usually work is closed. So there's nothing that we can do in regard to that particular business. We could plan to do business differently. We could start a new business. I have a lot of clients that were furloughed right now that are working on creating new businesses, and they're very aware that they might not get to that place that they can own their own business for a while. But at least they've gotten a jump start. They're hoping to get their jobs back. And then they'll have to deal with both businesses and figure out which path they're going to take. I have other clients who are taking this time to take classes, and other clients who are still in business, but every day have to pivot and make new decisions based on what life presents them that day. And I know all these people, they will weather the storm and they will be better when this is over. They will be better because they strengthen their relationship with uncertainty. And they'll be better because they're more aligned with the moment and what life is presenting them. That's the thing. When we're so resistant because we're stuck in how life used to be, we can't see what's in front of us. We can't see the opportunities in front of us. And I understand it could be very scary. So many doors have closed that when we look ahead, we can't see anything. But we have to remember that as things fall apart, it's also the beginning of things coming back together, even if you can't see it. And if we could understand that many of us are in a beginning that we just can't see, but we could know that life always offers us more opportunity and more possibilities, even when it's not obvious to us. And I know I always talk about the idea of maybe, but for me, maybe always reminds me of that. It always reminds me I'm not stuck, and even though I don't know the answer, and even though I can't see the path, uncertainty is my best friend, because if I want my life to change, it has to happen in the unknown. And these maybe statements of maybe everything is still okay, and maybe I'm going to figure this situation out in time, or maybe I need to look at other possibilities. It just reminds me not to be Blockbuster. It just reminds me not to hold on to what's not working in my life. It reminds me not to hold on to things that are no longer true or things that have left my life. Because I know the only way I'm going to get stuck is if I keep trying to do things the way I did them yesterday Life is always changing, and we need to remember that if we're willing to take the ride, we will change with life, and we will be able to show up and create new things. Now, it's also important when there are endings to make sure that we have basic resources. I know I talk about this a lot, but we have to make sure that we have a place to live, and we have to make sure that we have food and we have enough money to carry our basic needs. So that might include staying with someone else. That might include getting unemployment or accessing a government loan, whatever we need to do so we can land on solid ground. It might not be the ground that you chose, but it's solid and you could stand there so you could be okay enough to figure out what your next move will be. But don't look back. Don't look at yesterday. Whatever you're supposed to hold on from the days that passed have already become your wisdom. You already have your know-how and your tools. It's foolish to think that everything will be the same, but we shouldn't be afraid of that, because things not being the same doesn't mean things are going to be bad. And things not being the same doesn't mean there aren't going to be opportunities and possibilities. We just need to show up with an open mind and an open heart. And we need to be able to let go of yesterday and recognize the beginning. I wonder sometimes, had Blockbuster continued to invest in online streaming, would they have led the industry today? But the fact that they didn't was an open door for Netflix. It was an open door for other businesses. So just remember that even if you're part of a door that's closed, something new will move in, new ideas, new industries. Do you need to go back to school? Do you need to start your own business for the first time in your life? Are there skills you need for the job that you have? And even though it's challenging, and even though things have changed so quickly, there are a lot of resources out there for us all to begin again. So this pandemic is not the end of our economy. It's a change to our economy. And if we see that and we go with that and we don't resist it, we will be part of that change. New ideas, new opportunities, new possibilities, and new beginnings. And yes, sometimes it takes a long time for things to end and a long time to gather ourselves back together to begin again. But as long as you have your basic needs met, I promise you, if you stay with it, life will open up again. But be sure to look around you. Be sure to look around and see what's changing and how you can be part of that change. What's your part in it? Is this an opening, an opportunity for you to do things differently, to step back into the world with new ideas, or to be part of a new idea? And don't be afraid of what you don't know, because over time, life always reveals itself. Situations reveal themselves. Problems get solved, and new ideas are created. And that's the thing many of us are missing right now, because we're only looking at the news and we're looking at the Journal and the New York Times, and we think that they're reporting on the only thing that's happening. But there's creativity and new ideas and new thoughts going on in people's minds right now and opening people's hearts. You can't report on that because that's part of the creation. You can't always see hope. You can't always see a new idea happening, but it doesn't mean it's not there. There's some opportunity happening right now that's going to come your way, but it's hard to report on it and it's hard to know. And that's why it's so important to not get stuck in what you did yesterday and how things were yesterday and how the news is being reported today. You need to look at it, but you don't need to get stuck there, because the pandemic will end and the world will open up, and it's your job to make sure that you're ready with an open heart and an adventurous mind and a freedom for you to explore new opportunities and new possibilities. I promise you, you have what it takes to get back out there at the right time and find success and abundance and joy. So stay in the maybe. Remember, uncertainty is your best friend. There's nothing to feel stuck about. And always remember, maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my book, The Gift of Maybe, it's available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you could subscribe and leave a comment.